10 Toxic Habits to Quit Using Japanese Minimalism Secrets. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, life just keeps spinning out of control? As if you're chasing everything all at once, yet deep down there's no sense of peace? If that resonates with you, take a moment and breathe deeply. Maybe this is the stillness your mind has been quietly longing for, because clutter isn't always about the things around us. Sometimes, it's the endless stream of thoughts, the weight of silent expectations, and the unnamed worries we've never had the words to express. But here's something gentle to remember. Living minimally, the Japanese way, isn't about cutting everything out. It's about gently, mindfully choosing what truly matters. From how they prepare a cup of tea to how they fold a towel, every gesture is a quiet lesson in presence and meaning. It's not about having less, it's about keeping what deserves to stay. Today, I'll walk with you through 10 toxic habits that silently drain your life force, and how to release them through the calm, grounded principles of Japanese minimalism. Each step on this journey isn't just about tidying up your space. It's an invitation to return to yourself, lighter, deeper, and freer. 1. Unconscious consumption. Have you ever wondered why sometimes we buy things, even when we don't really know why? A shirt you might never wear, a decorative item with no place to go, or a midnight food order triggered by a post you just saw online? It's not because we need these things. It's because of a feeling subtle yet powerful that quietly pulls the strings. That feeling, often fleeting like a passing breeze, holds the power to shape our habits, our finances, and the peace within our minds. In Japanese culture, there's a quiet phrase for true awareness: Kokoro no Mi, the eyes of the heart. When those eyes close, we slip into the silent spiral of unconscious consumption. Every click to purchase, every item added to cart more often than not, it's not a necessity, but a way to soothe, distract, or fill a void we can't quite name. In a world where every sense is surrounded by ads, flash sales, and algorithm-powered temptations, staying mindful becomes a quiet battle. Every time you see a line like "only 3 left in stock" or "sale ends in 1 hour," your brain lights up not with reason, but with dopamine, the chemical of pleasure. You're not buying out of logic. You're buying to feel like you're not missing out, and the danger isn't in the item you buy, but in the habit you're feeding. The habit of chasing instant gratification at the cost of long-term clarity. The Japanese aren't strangers to the seduction of material things, but they've long had a compass to return to. Ikigai, the reason for being. Ikigai isn't some abstract philosophy. It's a filter, a mirror, a quiet checkpoint that helps you listen before you act. It asks a simple question: will this bring me closer to a life that truly matters? And that small question holds the power to halt countless unconscious decisions. It's like standing at a quiet fork in the road. One path leads to a quick purchase. The other, a more thoughtful version of you. When Ikigai enters the moment, you often choose the road that doesn't shine right away, but leads to a deeper light within. Picture yourself holding your phone, thumb hovering over the place order button. Instead, you pause. You ask, does this reflect what I love, what I'm good at, what the world needs from me? That brief pause interrupts dopamine's impulse and brings awareness back into the picture. And then, something simple yet profound might happen. You put the phone down. You step outside and breathe. Maybe you spend that moment painting, journaling, cooking, or simply sitting with your favorite song. Because some of the most fulfilling moments don't need anything new. They just need your full presence. In Okinawa, where some of the world's longest living people reside, they don't usually ask, "What do you do for a living?" Instead, they ask, "What's your ikigai?" Every action, whether it's gardening, making tea, or deciding whether to buy something, is measured by how much it adds to your joy, your purpose, your peace. In that space, consumption becomes intentional, not escapist. It becomes a reflection of who you are becoming. So if you've ever found yourself lost in online orders you can't remember placing, or felt oddly empty after shopping, maybe it's time to come home. Home to simplicity. To a space that doesn't need much, just enough to breathe deeply and smile gently. And if you're wondering where to begin with a question. Next time I feel like buying something, could I pause just for a moment and ask, does this bring me closer to myself? Because in a world of instant choices, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. 2. Endless hoarding. There's a strange kind of silence in rooms filled with too many things. It's not the peaceful stillness of calm, but the heavy hush of things we can't let go of. Every object lying around seems to hold a fragment of memory, a piece of anxiety, an unspoken excuse. Have you ever stepped into your own space and felt like you were walking through a museum of, maybe I'll need this? This used to mean something, or I'm not ready to throw it away? Hoarding doesn't always begin with greed. It often grows from fear. The fear of not having enough. The fear of needing something one day and not having it. The fear that letting go might lead to regret. For many, that fear is rooted in a difficult past, a childhood of scarcity, a loss that never healed, or a constant, gnawing insecurity. And over time, boxes, bags, and drawers bursting at the seams become the walls we build around that fear. But what we're holding on to isn't just physical clutter, it's a self-image. A birthday card is proof that someone once cared. A worn-out shirt holds memories of vibrant youth. An empty notebook reminds us of a dream that never got written. Letting these go can feel like losing pieces of ourselves. And yet, within Japanese minimalism, there's a gentle and healing act. The practice of speaking to your belongings. The KonMari method is not just about tidying up. It's a process of self-reflection, looking at your life through the lens of every item you own. When you hold something and ask, "Does this still bring me joy?" You're practicing honesty, not with anyone else, but with yourself. And in those small moments, you begin to reconnect with an inner voice that has long been muffled by anxiety and habit. What makes this method beautiful is that it doesn't force you to throw things away with detachment. Instead, it teaches you to express gratitude before saying goodbye. An old sweater isn't just fabric, it kept you warm through many winters. Before you let it go, you thank it quietly. And just like that, parting becomes softer, almost sacred. It's no longer just cleaning. It becomes a quiet ritual of closure, clearing space for a new beginning. In Japanese culture, there's a belief that objects carry spirit. That's why people bow to old desks, polish their shoes with care, or say farewell to a chipped bowl. In these small gestures lies deep reverence for the past and for the self that lived within it, but also for the present that longs to breathe. If your space ever feels like it's tightening around you, maybe you're holding on to more than just physical things. Maybe you're clinging to outdated expectations, old roles you no longer need to play, or versions of yourself that no longer feel true but have never been fully released. And maybe, just maybe, the journey toward minimalism doesn't begin by buying less, but by asking a gentle question, does this still bring me joy? When you can answer that with honesty, you're not just clearing out a room, you're clearing out your mind. 3. Mental clutter. Some mornings, we wake up already feeling full, not in our bodies, but in our minds. Before the day even begins, our thoughts are already racing. Unfinished plans, lingering doubts, unanswered questions, quiet worries, half-formed feelings all tangled together like a delicate yet sticky web, pulling us away from clarity, away from ourselves. Mental clutter is like a messy room. When everything is piled up without order, the space feels suffocating. And when that clutter lives in your head, the consequences are even more subtle and insidious. You start snapping at people for no reason. You can't sleep. You hesitate over even the simplest choices. Research shows that when our brains are overloaded with too much input, our ability to prioritize drops. And so instead of living intentionally, we begin simply reacting. The mess in our minds often mirrors the disorder around us. A cluttered desk isn't just messy, it might be a reflection of unresolved feelings, a conversation you've been avoiding, a decision you keep delaying, or a truth you're not ready to face. That's how it begins. The loop between the chaos inside and the clutter outside slowly feeding off each other until it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. In Japanese wisdom, there's a beautiful concept called Hoshin Kanri, a kind of inner compass that points you toward what truly matters. Quietly and clearly, it asks you to define your direction and realign your actions to serve that purpose. It doesn't try to control everything, just to center your energy on what's essential. When you're clear about where your life is going, the noise naturally fades. Like a garden where only intentional plants are allowed to grow, the mind too needs trimming, shaping, and nourishment rooted in meaningful choice. Alongside this, the Japanese also embrace the quiet power of writing. Just 3 lines a day, a moment of gratitude, a challenge faced, a lesson learned is often enough to untangle the noise. Not everything needs to be said, not everything needs to be fixed, but when you write it down, even in the simplest form, you begin to see your own rhythm. You begin to realize you are living, you are learning, and you are quietly growing. This kind of minimalist journaling isn't about storytelling, it's a form of meditation. In Zen, they say, the fewer the words, the clearer the heart. In a world where every device begs for our attention, notifications, messages, constant content silence has become a rare treasure. But the Japanese have long known how to protect that stillness. They choose intentional interruption. They know when to put the phone away, when to close the door, when to come back to themselves. So if your mind has started to feel like a storage room with no space left, maybe it's time to open a window not to let more in, but to let something go. Give your mind the chance to breathe again, because as the Zen saying goes, when the mind is still like water, everything becomes clear. 4. Constant social comparison. There's a habit that's hard to notice because it makes no sound, has no shape, but slowly erodes our self-worth piece by piece, comparing ourselves to others. A casual scroll through social media, a photo of someone traveling, a quick story of someone's success, and suddenly your own life feels dull, small, and not enough. Even when you know it's just a highlight reel, even when logic tells you people only share their best moments, your heart doesn't always listen. It reacts with doubt, with insecurity, and slowly, with a quiet emptiness that's hard to explain. This feeling doesn't arrive with noise. It creeps in silently, lingers gently, and stays like a shadow. Every time you see someone else's accomplishments, inspiration fades into pressure. Connection turns into distance. And the more you compare, the harder it becomes to truly see yourself. You stop hearing the unique rhythm of your own life. You begin living at someone else's pace faster, louder, more polished, but not your own. In Japanese culture, there's a quiet antidote to this habit, and it's called kansha, a deep-rooted form of gratitude. Not a surface-level thankfulness, but a gentle acknowledgement of the small, enough things already present in your life. When we return to gratitude, we shift our focus from the outside in. We stop obsessing over what we lack and start recognizing how much we already have. Every night, writing down just 3 simple things that warmed your heart, a good meal, a kind hug, a moment of being heard begins to soften that voice of comparison in your mind. And if you ever find yourself chasing someone else's image of a perfect life, try slowing down and make yourself a cup of tea, not just to drink, but to prepare with care. Gently rotate the cup. Hold it with both hands. Sip slowly and fully. This isn't just about tea. It's about how the Japanese teach us to treat ourselves like honored guests. Someone worthy of presence and attention, not for what they've achieved, but simply for being here, alive and real. In the Japanese tea ceremony, there's a phrase, ichi, go ichi. Each moment is a once-in-a-lifetime encounter. When you truly understand that, comparison begins to fade. Because no 2 journeys are the same. No rhythm of life is better or worse. There is only one path meant for you, and it's the one you're already walking. So if today you find yourself shaken by someone else's shiny post, close your eyes for a second and ask yourself, what am I truly grateful for today? The answer may be small, but often it's the smallest things that bring us home to ourselves. 5. Excessive multitasking. There are days when you feel like you've done so much, yet somehow accomplished nothing at all. Your mind is exhausted, your hands never stopped moving, but your thoughts feel scattered into hundreds of disconnected pieces. That's the familiar state of someone living in chronic multitasking mode. And what's unsettling is that modern society celebrates this as a sign of productivity. But deep down, you know you're quietly burning out. The human brain isn't designed to juggle multiple things at once. What we call multitasking is actually rapid context switching. Each time we switch from one task to another, we lose a bit of mental energy, a bit of presence, a bit of depth. When we're constantly bouncing between tasks, replying to messages while in a meeting, listening to music while writing, toggling between tabs, we deny everything in our lives the chance to become whole. In Japanese culture, there's a deeply grounding philosophy that asks us to reconsider how we move through life. Ichi go ichi, one moment, one encounter. Every moment is unique, never to be repeated, and because of that, it deserves our full attention, not just in tea ceremonies, but in everyday things, a meal, a conversation, a small task. When we give our full presence to one act, we tap into the deepest beauty of living, being truly here. It's no coincidence that Japanese artisans devote their entire lives to mastering a single skill. They believe depth comes from going slow, with care and precision, repeating the same action until it holds the soul. Every slice of the blade, every stitch of the hand carries intention. This is the spirit of Shokunin the craftsman who lives for excellence, and in this spirit, there is no room for distraction. When we live this way, even the smallest tasks become rituals. Cooking a meal is no longer a chore, but a moment of connection. An hour of focused work isn't something to get through, but a flow state we get to enter. And beautifully, when we stop trying to do everything at once, we actually do more and we do it better. So if you feel like you've become a machine that never stops running, pause for a moment, choose one thing, do it with your full presence. Don't rush, just be real. As the Japanese say, in slowness, there is the strength of depth. 6. Not knowing how to say no. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work or physical effort. It comes from saying yes, too many times when deep down, your heart quietly wanted to say no. A no that was never spoken. A silence filled with obligations you didn't truly want. A series of small sacrifices that, over time, become a quiet burden on your soul. And one day, you find yourself asking, why am I always so drained, even when no one is forcing me? It's never easy to say no. Behind every no lies a tangle of fears, the fear of being disliked, of letting others down, of being labeled selfish or cold. Many of us were raised to believe that kindness means always saying yes, always being helpful, always accommodating. But few of us were taught that even kindness needs boundaries, that a full heart cannot keep giving if it never has space to rest. And so we grow up with a blurry line between generosity and people-pleasing, between willingness and depletion, between care and self-erasure. When every invitation gets a nod, every responsibility is accepted, and every empty moment is filled with someone else's need, is there any space left for you? In Japanese culture, there's a beautifully quiet concept that reminds us of the value of space. Ma, the silent in-between. In art, it's the blank space between brushstrokes. In music, the pause between notes. In life, it's the time when we do nothing. Not rushing, not responding, not filling, just being. When we bring Ma into how we manage time, it means protecting those quiet pauses as sacred. It means setting aside part of the day not for chores, not for obligations, but for breathing, for feeling, for remembering who we are and what really matters. And it's in those spaces that we finally find room to say no with grace, without guilt. Saying no isn't pushing others away. It's gently returning to the healthy edge of your own life. It's honoring your pace, so that when you do choose to give, you're giving from fullness, not from empty. The Japanese have a quiet saying, when the teacup is full, stop pouring. Sometimes, the kindest thing isn't to keep taking on more, but to pause so nothing overflows. If you've ever felt tense at the thought of turning someone down, if you've ever felt your chest tighten when putting someone's needs ahead of your own, remember this: a well-timed, sincere no can be a gift. Not just for you, but for the other person too. Because when you're clear with yourself, you give others permission to be honest with themselves too. 7. Putting things in the wrong place. Some mornings begin with the quiet frustration of searching for your keys, your phone, your wallet, things you're sure were just there the night before. It feels like they're hiding from you, slipping just beyond reach as the minutes pass and your to-do list looms. What could have been a peaceful start turns into a scramble of stress, and before the day even begins, you're already off balance. It seems small, this habit of putting things in the wrong place. but its impact runs deeper than we realize. It's not just time we're losing, it's clarity, it's calm. And when it happens often, it begins to fray the edges of our day. Each misplaced item becomes another disruption, another little rupture in the flow of life. It wears down our focus, adds weight to our thoughts, and leaves us with a subtle but lingering sense of defeat. The messiness of our surroundings often mirrors the messiness within. When surfaces are cluttered, when there's no order in our environment, our minds start to echo that chaos. Memory falters, decisions blur, and frustration becomes a background noise we learn to tolerate. But that noise chips away at peace, bit by bit, and the longer we ignore it, the more it feels like living in quiet disorder has become normal. In Japanese culture, there's a principle called tokonoma, a designated alcove in traditional homes used to display art, flowers, or objects of quiet beauty. But more than just decoration, tokonoma is a reminder. Every object deserves a rightful place. Beauty isn't found in excess, but in thoughtful arrangement. And when something is placed with care, it becomes easier to appreciate and easier to find. When we bring this spirit into our daily lives, we stop tossing things down and passing. Instead, we begin to give our belongings a true home, a consistent, welcoming spot that's always there. And in return, those small moments of putting things back become part of a gentle rhythm. When your hand returns an item to its place, your mind also returns to calm. When your home is in order, your thoughts follow. If you find yourself running in circles each morning, retracing your steps to recover what's missing, it may not be forgetfulness. It may simply be that your space hasn't yet made that quiet promise to you that everything has a place to return to. And maybe that's all you need too, a place, however small, to come home to. 8. Oversaving. There are things we no longer use, and yet we keep them. Not because we need them, but because they remind us of something that once mattered. An old letter, a shirt that no longer fits, a faded gift from years ago. They sit quietly, but heavily. Heavy with memory, heavy with attachment, and heavy with the fear that if we let go, we might lose a piece of ourselves. Holding on to too much doesn't always come from greed, it often comes from fear. Fear of forgetting what once was. Fear of losing connection. Fear of regret. But when we hold on in the wrong way, we get stuck in loops of nostalgia, of hesitation, of blurred lines between what still belongs in the present and what's only an echo of the past. The room becomes full, but the heart feels strangely empty. The living space grows crowded, while emotions get tangled and heavy. In Japanese philosophy, there is a principle called shibumi. It's difficult to translate fully, but it speaks to the beauty of quiet refinement, the elegance of simplicity, the richness found in restraint. Within shibumi, we don't keep everything just because it once mattered, we keep what still adds value to our life today. Because the past, if truly meaningful, doesn't need to be clung to through things. It continues to live as long as we are living fully in the present. Letting go of an object doesn't mean forgetting the memory it holds. Sometimes, a single photo is enough, a small note, a moment of quiet thanks. Then we can allow it to leave. Because when we're no longer weighed down by what no longer serves us, we create space for something new. New experiences, new clarity, new feelings of lightness. Like a freshly cleaned room that welcomes light in without needing to be asked. Shibumi doesn't tell us to live with less, but to live with intention, to live in alignment with what is true and with what is now. It reminds us that when we release something with gratitude, we don't lose it, we transform it. In Japanese culture, beauty isn't found in perfection, but in graceful impermanence. Not in fullness, but in space that breathes. Not in holding on, but in allowing closure, gently. So if you're surrounded by things that no longer have a place in your current life, maybe it's time to ask yourself a quiet question. Is this still truly beautiful or truly essential for who I am today? And if the answer is no, let yourself exhale, let yourself release, so you can live more fully with what remains and what's yet to come. 9. Neglecting self-care. There's a quiet kind of forgetting that doesn't make noise, but slowly wears us down. It's the kind that happens when we stop caring for ourselves. Not because we don't want to, but because we always leave it for last after work, after others, after all the musts. And day by day, we become the important thing that keeps getting pushed aside. From the outside, everything might still seem fine. You're working, showing up, smiling. But inside, the weariness begins to take root. Your body starts to speak in subtle ways, random headaches, restless nights, irritation you can't explain. And your mind feels like a drifting boat with no anchor, no place to return to. Modern society often wears busyness like a badge of honor. The busier you are, the more accomplished you seem. But in that celebration of hustle, we forget this simple truth. If you don't take care of yourself, no amount of success will protect you from burnout. You can't pour from an empty cup. In Japanese culture, there's a gentle way to begin coming back to yourself. Asa no okaimono, morning shopping. But not for things. It's a metaphor for choosing moments of quiet for the soul. A cup of tea, a page in a journal, a few mindful stretches. Just 20 minutes is enough to reconnect with yourself, to breathe more deeply, to begin your day without rushing, without pressure. Self-care doesn't have to be grand. Often, it's found in small, repeated acts of self-kindness. Running your fingers through your hair before sleep, steeping a pot of herbal tea, speaking softly to yourself after a long day. These little rituals say, "You matter too." And when they're repeated with intention, they stop being indulgences and become part of how you live. In Japanese tradition, soaking in a sento bath or preparing tea in shinoyu isn't just about relaxation. It's about cleansing the spirit, restoring inner harmony. Remembering that caring for yourself is caring for the very essence of your life with presence, with dignity. If you've ever delayed rest or felt guilty for doing something just for you, ask yourself, is there something within me that's been waiting to be heard? And if the answer is yes, don't wait. Sit down, pour the tea, come home to yourself, because you are always the most essential part of this life. 10. Not identifying core values. There are moments in life when you feel like you're living, but without really knowing what for. Each day passes with choices to make, directions to consider, goals that others suggest for you, but within all of it, something essential is missing, an inner compass. Without clear core values, you become like a ship with no direction. You move, but you don't know where you're headed. That feeling isn't loud, it's subtle yet persistent. It shows up as indecision in the face of too many options, as a quiet disconnect when nothing you achieve feels deeply fulfilling, as the kind of fatigue that lingers even when your schedule is empty. It's the unease you feel late at night, wondering why you're doing what you're doing without finding a solid answer. In today's world, where everything is suggested, promoted, compared, and constantly updated, living without your own clear values is like trying to follow a map without a destination. Every decision becomes harder than it should be. Every external pressure pushes you off balance. And over time, you fall into a cycle of doing things that look right but don't feel right. You function, but you don't feel alive. The Japanese offer us a quiet, steady path out of this disorientation, ikigai, your reason for being. Not a single goal, but a gentle intersection between four things: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what can sustain your life. When those things overlap, something shifts. You begin to live with direction. Each choice passes through a single question: does this align with my ikigai? And in that one question, most of life's noise begins to fade. What's left is what truly matters. Ikigai isn't something you find once and forget. It's an ongoing relationship with yourself, a dialogue that deepens as you grow. It asks you to listen inward, again and again, and to be willing to adjust your path but never lose sight of your roots. Because those roots, your core values, are the thread that quietly holds everything together. So if you've ever stood at a crossroads unsure which way to turn, or felt strangely disconnected from your own decisions, maybe the answer isn't to ask, which path is right? But instead, which value in me needs to live right now? And when you begin there, you may find that the right path isn't the easiest one. It's the one that feels like coming home to yourself. And so, when we pause to look deeply into these seemingly harmless habits, we begin to see how they quietly erode our living space, our mental well-being, and even our core values day by day. But in that very recognition, a new door opens where Japanese minimalism reveals itself not just as a way of organizing our belongings, but as a mindful, grateful, and more meaningful way of being. If something in today's reflection made you pause and listen a little more closely to yourself, then that alone is already a powerful first step. Because every change, no matter how small, begins with a single moment of awareness. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If you found this video helpful, feel free to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might also need a quiet moment to realign with themselves. I'll be back soon with more gentle and healing reflections. See you in the next video.